to start with a reading from Who Does That Bitch Think She Is? Doris Fish and the Rise of Drag by Craig Seligman. And this is in the chapter entitled Romantic Cruelism. And Doris has just arrived in San Francisco. Posters plastered all over the city held out the promise in bright red letters under a rendering of what appeared to be conjoined twin aliens playing an accordion. It said, "Winners will perform with the Tubes at Bimbo's," a large nightclub on Columbus Avenue in North Beach. Underneath, smaller print admonished that only the unusual and bizarre need apply. The Tubes embodied the goofy, unmalevolent side of the 70s San Francisco lunacy and excess. Though there were a bunch of straight guys mostly, as Michael Cotton, who played synthesizer for the band until 1986 and remains the unofficial keeper of its archives, told me. They were alert to the drag culture of their town. At some point in their shows, their lead singer, Fee Waybill, would smear on makeup, don a wig, squeeze into an obscene metallic jumpsuit, and lurch on stage in platform boots as an androgynous lout named Quay Lude. The band also featured a gorgeous female singer, Rhys Styles, and several barely clad dancers, one of whom, the towering Jane Dornacker, a clever songwriter who had co-written the Tube's lewdly funny Don't Touch Me There, would later do shows with Doris. The band's contempt for flower child virtues made them, like Sylvia and the Synthetics, forerunners of punk, and their aesthetic was similarly satirical and maximalist, although, unlike the Synthetics, they were talented, ambitious musicians. For their finale, which was usually a jeering send-up of their audience called White Punks on Dope, there might be 25 people on stage. In 1976, when Doris was 24, they were looking for oddballs to add to their San Francisco shows. The competition took place on Sunday afternoon in the Boarding House, a popular club on Bush Street. It was a professional operation, and the band, which was taping it, slipped in a few of its own acts into the mix, notably Rhys Styles and the dancer Cindy Osborne performing Rock and Roll Weirdos in the conjoined twin costume featured on the poster, which Jane Dornacker, who'd written the song the night before, joining in from the piano. When Doris had noted the poster's call for the bizarre, he thought, "No, there's going to be a lot of weird things. I'll just go as a normal kind of drag queen." His look had gradually been softening anyway. He put on a strapless pink 50s tulle satin party dress that ballooned with petticoats, a badly disheveled pinkish blonde wig, and a modicum, for Doris, of necklaces and bracelets, accented with a silver clutch. He shaved his chest. He was now going to the gym, working out with heavy weights, so that when he put on a padded push-up bra, he would have cleavage. The ratty wig, the low-cut dress, the plastic jewelry combined to make him look gloriously cheap. But most of his planning had gone into the drag. As he sat there watching the contenders before him repeatedly get the hook well before their 3-minute time limit was up, he still hadn't settled on what he was going to do. When he finally got called on stage, he was number 33, the slutty get-up drew appreciative titters. He leaned into the mic and began talking in a blanched bra purr with no hint of Sydney.
You know, girls, it's hard to find a guy that really turns you on, and you just dig everything he does. Like when he gives you that great big special hug, and that, heavy kiss.
Patrons of drag bars may recognize the lengthy lead-in to the potent 1970 version of Maybe by the Philadelphia girl group The 3 Degrees.
You know, girls, it's hard to find a guy that really blows your mind. And you just dig everything he does, like when he gives you that great big special hug and that heavy kiss.
I can't say that I did when I saw the tape. Most of the audience thought Doris was just doing a funny character. The routine seems almost off the cuff, which is how it should seem, since Doris had probably lip-synced the song hundreds of times by then. From the beginning, Doris is in control. It's clear that the crowd is reacting to him not as a weirdo, but as a clown. What begins as tittering swells to laughter. When he reaches the line, so we stopped at a cozy little place, and I guess the shock of seeing him made me order a martini, because that's something I'd never done before. Which is funny, or maybe just slightly absurd on the record. They completely break up.
We stopped at a cozy little place, and I guess the shock of seeing him made me order martini, because that's something that I've never done before.
Doris started getting nervous as he neared the end. All the performers had been booted well before this point in their acts. The monologue rises tensely to the first shattering notes of the song. Doris certainly wasn't going to break into song since he couldn't sing, so he improvised a quick throwaway.
I could feel my nerve building. I couldn't let it go. Not this time. Not this time. So I took his hand. I looked him straight into the eye. And that's as far as I can remember what happened.
By the way,
By now, he had discovered or constructed his comic persona. The contrast of his trampy look with his modest, trying to be ladylike delivery is very funny. It's a complex level of things, he said much later, trying to explain the mechanism as much to himself as to me. This Doris Fish character thinks she's a real woman, or she thinks she's fooling everybody. That's the underlying gag that I have with myself on stage, even though intellectually I know I'm not fooling anybody. And the audience laughs at the delusions of the character. But these delusions have no pathos. Doris, the romantic cruelist, abhorred pathos. They're just funny, as the Tubes recognized when they invited Doris to perform with them at Bimbo's. Well, as I said, I love this story so much, and I was so interested to see the video footage that Craig described so beautifully. So Craig put me in touch with Michael Cotton, who is the archivist for the Tubes, and Michael graciously dug up the video and sent it to me and gave us permission to share it with you. And then this is where we will pick up our interview with Pearl Harbour, because as Pearl Gates at the time, Pearl also won the Tubes Talent Hunt contest. She and Doris tied, and they performed with the Tubes at Bimbo's for 3 weeks. So it is a pleasure to talk with Pearl, and let's listen now. Well, but why don't we just start at the beginning? The Tubes Talent Hunt contest was in 1976.
Yes.
And who were you and where were you at in your life at this when that event happened? Where were you at with your career?
My career had not really begun. 1976, I was 21 years old in San Francisco. I moved from Germany when I was 17 in 1973 to San Francisco. And so the 3 years that I lived there before I auditioned for the Tubes Talent Hunt, I was just looking around, trying to join shows or seeing what was going on. And I was just, I was very young and green. So when I saw the Tubes show in 1975, I said, oh my gosh, I want to be with them. And then, because they had all these dancing girls and background vocalists and stuff like that, and percussionists, and I could do background vocals and percussion and dance. And so I thought that would be great for me. But, and then the following year in October of 1976, I saw posters all over San Francisco saying Tubes Talent Hunt, and I thought, ooh, let's see about that. So I got together a costume, which I had been taking tap dancing lessons since 1974, and I took ballet, jazz, and tap. And tap was, of course, my favorite, and so I came up with this idea of the tap dancing shadow boxer. So I had boxing gloves and a bathrobe with my name in glitter on the back, and I went out tap dancing, and it seemed to do the trick because the the audience liked it, and they and so I won along with Doris, and Doris did a comedy routine, and so we both, I guess, sort of tied, and so we both, the prize was that we both got to be in the Tubes show, which was 3 weeks at Bimbo's, and that's a nightclub in San Francisco. So Doris and I were backstage, 95% of the time, because we were only in one number together, and it was a really big, long show. So we sat in the dressing room, for a couple of hours alone together while everybody was on stage. And not only was Doris painting her face, but she painted mine. It was first time, because I was this little hippie kid, and Doris showed me how to do hair and makeup. She, showed me how to safety pin wigs together to have a giant beehive. She taught me how to put on false eyelashes. She taught me how to paint my face and contour it. And, every night I would say, oh, tonight I want to look more Asian. And she'd make me look like a little China doll. And then I'd say, tonight I want to look like Sophia Loren. And she'd do these exotic eyeliner eyes. So every night I just sat with Doris while she painted my face. So I had a ball, and it was just hilarious because all these, at that time, everybody was, a Coke freak. I'd never done Coke, and Doris wasn't particularly interested in drugs. And so we'd sit backstage and watch all these people pile into the bathroom together backstage, and we'd look at each other going, oh, we know what they're doing. And then sometimes while the Tubes were on stage, different people would come backstage and use the bathroom or whatever. And I'll never forget Eddie Money. He's a singer. He became very, very famous, but I mean, at that time he was very popular, but he came backstage and he hogged the bathroom for a long time because unfortunately, he was a heroin addict. So he stayed in the bathroom for a long time, and Doris and I were pounding on the door going, we need to use the bathroom. And then, he comes stumbling out, and then he stays backstage. And Doris thought that he was staying backstage because he wanted to see all the girls changing their clothes. And so she called him a star fucker, because she's Australian, of course, and she had the accent. And so she was like, why don't you get out of here? You're nothing but a star fucker. And I was like, wow. I just had never, and then Eddie Money, looked at her and looked at us, and I was like, who are you?